You know, if you've ever been in a fender bender or maybe slipped on a wet floor in a grocery store, well, believe it or not, those moments are all connected to this huge area of law. A lot of people have never even heard of it. Today, we're going to break down what tort law is all about. So you've definitely heard the word negligence, right? It's all over TV crime dramas. But here's the thing. That's just one tiny piece of a way bigger puzzle. And that whole puzzle, it's called a tort. So let's dive in and figure out what on earth a tort actually is.
Okay, let's get right into it. What is a tort? We're going to start with a super simple definition. All right, so the word tort, it actually comes from an old French word that just means wrong. Simple enough, right? But here's the key distinction. It's a civil wrong, not a criminal one. So we're not talking about the government putting someone in jail for a crime. No, this is all about one person or entity suing another because they've been harmed and they're looking for compensation to make things right. And what's kind of crazy is that tort law has been around forever. I mean, it's ancient and it affects so much of our daily lives, but most people have no idea what it's called. We all get the basic idea, right? If someone hurts you, they should have to fix it. But we don't really know the legal machinery that actually makes that happen. That's tort law.
Okay, but just saying it's a wrong is still, I don't know, a little vague, isn't it? We can do better than that. There's a much more powerful way to understand what's going on here. And that brings us to this idea of a breach of interest.
There's this great legal text from 2017. It just nails it. It says that tort law gives you a remedy when someone causes a breach of a protected interest. Okay, listen to that phrase again. Protected interest. That right there, that's the magic key. If you can get your head around that one little concept, you've basically cracked the code of tort law.
So what in the world is a protected interest? I know it sounds super academic and abstract, but trust me, the examples are things we all care about every single day. All right, so let's make this real. We're going to connect that big idea of a protected interest to some actual torts, and I bet you've heard of these before.
Okay, let's start with your reputation. The law basically says, hey, your reputation is valuable and you have a right to protect it. So that's a protected interest. Now, if someone goes and tells a damaging lie about you, they've just breached that interest. And the specific legal term for that, it's called defamation. You've probably heard of its two flavors. Libel is when it's written down, and slander is when it's spoken out loud.
All right, now for the big one, your personal safety. I mean, it doesn't get much more fundamental than that, right? That is absolutely a protected interest. So when someone's careless, let's say a driver is texting and runs a red light and hits your car, and you get hurt, well, that's a breach of your interest in being safe. And that specific tort, that's negligence. That's the one you always hear about.
So, okay, a wrong happened, a protected interest has been breached. Now what? What happens next?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about now. How these wrongs get righted.
Usually, the solution, or what lawyers call the remedy, is damages. And that's just a fancy word for money, right? Financial compensation for whatever harm was done. But, and this is important, it's not always about the money. A court could also issue something called an injunction, which is basically an official order to stop doing the thing that's causing the harm. Or, think back to that reputation example, the court might order a formal public apology to set the record straight and clear your good name.
Okay, so we've gone through a lot of ground here pretty quickly, but if there's just one big idea you take away from all of this, what should it be? Let's boil it all down.
Here's the bottom line. Tort law is basically society's rulebook for making things right when one person wrongfully harms another person's legally protected interests. Things like your physical safety, your property, or your reputation. And remember, the goal isn't really to punish the wrongdoer. It's to restore the person who was harmed, to try and make them whole again as much as possible. And, you know, all of this leaves us with a really interesting final thought. We know torts are civil wrongs, but think about it. Where exactly is the line between just an everyday annoyance that you have to live with and a genuine wrong that's serious enough for a legal case? That's a super tricky question, and it's something that lawyers and courts wrestle with constantly. It really gets to the core of how we as a society decide to manage our conflicts and live with each other.